Welcome to Balancing Acts. Roy Wanguhu. Today, my guest is Kevin Kunze, um, filmmaker, AI expert, and a sales rep. Now, we've known each other for a while. Our worlds have crossed in different industries, not actually industries, in different spaces in the filmmaking world, right? We moved through 360 to filmmaking, and he's full of a lot of gems. So I thought it would be great to bring him on and introduce him to you all. Welcome, Kevin. If I didn't get it all right, I would love you to kind of, we'll catch it and explore it a little bit more here.
This is perfect. Perfect. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, you're welcome. You're welcome. Um, let's start actually on the basics, right? Why filmmaking?
Well, I think we all are storytellers. Naturally, this is what we all do every day. You look at even some of the top CEOs in the world, they're like the best storytellers. I think like if Steve Jobs didn't get into making Apple, he'd be like a great filmmaker. He would do some crazy movies. And so, as a kid, I felt like I had trouble, explaining myself to people and emotions and how I felt about different things. And then when I was able to make a movie, I could really articulate it perfectly clear. And I felt like after the movie, people understood more. And so it was just a better way to communicate with people.
When did that start, or was there any inspirational moment that you're like, I want to be a filmmaker? And also filmmaking being broad, like this is exactly, did you ever have that moment of figuring that out?
Yeah, well, I remember just, on a summer vacation one time, my dad had like one of these early like S-VHS cameras. So it wasn't like a VHS tape, but like the mini tape that you put in the VHS tape. And I was like, oh, can I play with that? And I started filming the whole vacation. And then it was pretty much like, yeah, I'm going to use this for like a lot of things. I'm going to start making little movies. And I began doing that. I think it was like, 6 or 7. And by the time I was in middle school, I had English teachers that were really cool. I would say to them, hey, I wrote a script, instead of doing a book report, can I film like a movie? And all of a sudden I was like doing that for like pretty much, a lot of my classes and stuff. And yeah, I really appreciate my teachers for allowing that. But again, I was doing the work. I was writing a script out too and everything like that. And a lot more work goes into making a movie, I think, than writing a book report. But yeah, so that was kind of like my early days. And then you'd have other kids in the class who were like, well, I want to do that too. And so like a bunch of filmmakers came out of the high school I went to, Bunnell High School. One really great friend of mine, filmmaker, Paul Briganti. He's done a lot of great stuff for SNL. And then this other really great writer, Travis Helwig, who his wife started the show Hacks.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically we all kind of, back in high school, we said, let's put on like a little film festival to raise a little money for the town library.
Yeah.
And we would do that, and it was kind of like a way of being like, all right, who's the best filmmaker in town? Like we all tried to make kind of, outdo each other a little bit, but we all had different genres. I didn't really focus so much on the comedy world. I was more into like, dark stuff, horror movies and like thrillers and things of that nature.
That's amazing. And the school, where was that? Where was that in?
Oh, a little small town in Connecticut, Stratford, and the name Stratford from Stratford upon Avon. So everyone was into Shakespeare too. It was like every grade you had to read a different Shakespeare. Okay. It was kind of like ingrained into the educational system.
Okay.
And in that way, like everyone, when we read Shakespeare, I remember in class, you would have to read a part and somebody else would read a part. And so we would go through like a play like that. And immediately it's like, okay, we're just in a rehearsal right now,
Wow. Okay, that's a good background too. How did you end up on this side of town?
So I applied to a bunch of colleges, in New England and also California, and I got into like none of them, which is crazy. I had, I think, pretty strong, portfolio at the time.
Yeah.
And I presented that. But again, I think, you apply to NYU, you apply to Yale, you apply to some of these top schools, and they look for people who have like families that will donate money. And I did not
Yes,
come from,
yes, yes.
that side of town. So I ended up going to the University of San Francisco because they gave me a really good scholarship and work study. And I remember even before going into a classroom there, I went into the camera rental and I was getting started on my job, which was going to be doing camera rentals for the students. And it was just a great experience because immediately you go to a smaller film school, and if you already know a lot of your stuff, you kind of
Yeah.
jump high up right away.
Yes.
So I was a teacher assistant as a freshman for the senior documentary film class. And we had a really good professor there, this guy Sam Green, who had just been nominated for an Oscar for The Weather Underground. And basically it was like I was getting paid to basically be the teacher assistant, but I was taking the class too. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I was just operating the projector, making sure, all the slides and the films were playing properly.
Yeah.
But, for me, it was kind of like that. That was like the bee's knees, being able to get access to the cameras early. I had friends at NYU who said, you go to NYU, you're not touching a camera until your junior year. Freshman year, sophomore year, it's all sound. And so I said, I'm already going to jump into that. And being in the camera equipment room, all of a sudden you make friends with everybody in the school who's a filmmaker because they're like, hey, Kevin, I need that camera not just for Saturday, but also Sunday morning. You think you can get that on my reservation? And then I would be like, that's fine, but you got to get it right away to this other person who needs the camera for Sunday afternoon. Don't bring it straight back to me. You can bring it directly to them, and it's going to, keep all the productions on track. So all of a sudden you're producing like a bunch of short films kind of in a way.
Logistics, everything, moving gear and everyone
and
connecting.
And we were like, how do we make this so people can communicate and send us a message? And I was like,
Okay.
we need to start a Facebook page for, USF Media Lab. And that was a great idea because otherwise people trying to call us on the phone and stuff. It's like, that's so old school. So
that's a good opportunity at least to get into the industry. And then after graduation, where did you end up? Did you find a home?
Well, it's kind of a little bit more than that too. I felt like, the school was doing a lot, but I wanted to make a feature film.
Okay.
That was like my goal for like, okay, I'm going to go to college, but I want to make a feature film.
Yes.
So I talked to the head of the program. I said, can I do a direct study where I make a feature? And they were able to work with that, and we made it happen. And I learned so many mistakes of all the things you do not do. And I'm like, this movie, I won't even say the name of it. It's buried. I buried it. I all the DVDs are gone. But we did premiere it at, a theater and got the feedback and everything. And parts of it worked. But really it was like, I'd done a ton of short films. But when you make something feature length, you need to make all of those pieces really work together.
Correct.
And if you have a really good opening and middle and end, but they don't all connect,
correct,
it just is not going to work. And so I learned a lot through that process. And I also started to intern at a production company in Sausalito. And I was doing their assistant editing on a documentary all about the Memphis music scene. And this taught me a lot about like, you do a feature film, it might take you a year or two, but you do a documentary, it's like, that's going to be like a decade.
Yes.
It could be like 5 years if you're quick, 4 years. But I realized that when you do a documentary, you don't have to control as many things. Like one of the issues with doing the feature narrative is we'd have an actor who's in it and they say, I'm actually going to transfer to another school. And you have to be like, all right, I'm going to rewrite my whole script now.
Just to remove you out of this scene that I put it in. Because that was my other question for you. It's like, what is your biggest lesson that you'd say, hey, if you're doing a feature film, anticipate this, or these are the challenges that I ran into?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where with the documentary, you almost never know what you're going to get out of it until you start interviewing people.
Yes.
And then what's also cool is you're, in many ways, filming a narrative version too.
Yes.
Where you have to film recreation footage or you need to create B-roll that will match over sound lines. And so for me, it's kind of like you're doing two things. You're doing the narrative film and you're doing the documentary. But it's one of these things that just, it takes so much time, but in a way you don't have the sweat of like, oh, that actor, we got to wrap them in a week.
Yeah,
We got to
that's
do
true.
everything 24/7. And then people get stressed out, and this is not as happy of a production as with documentary. I think there's a little bit more time to breathe and kind
Yeah.
of take it in and meditate on what you got.
And the beauty of documentaries is like sometimes where you start is not where you end up.
Yeah.
Sorry. I
No
thought I
worries.
muted my phone. There's
No,
one-
it's perfect segue because it
there's
kind of
one
led
person
me.
who gets a pass on my calls, so
Yeah.
the missus. But
The missus is
the
okay.
missus, yeah, she'll be fine. She's fine. Let me. Yeah, maybe airplane mode. I was trying not to put airplane mode with the other. Let me text her.
I can spiel for a little bit here. So I basically, from learning doing the assistant editing on that feature, I kind of got, my toes wet. And I said, well, I want to direct my own documentary. It seems like that'd be a lot easier than doing another narrative. And so I started to do a documentary all about cell phone radiation and safety legislation, because at the time, Gavin Newsom had passed a controversial safety bill that was basically taking fine print information buried in every cell phone manual, putting it on the box, making it more available to people. And the cell phone companies sued tooth and nail and went after San Francisco, saying it goes against their freedom of speech as corporations. I said, well, that's really interesting. I don't know anything about the science, but that in itself is just kind of like an interesting angle of like people wanting to get out safety information and these big corporations wanting to keep a lid on it. And that led me on a 4-year journey. I interviewed the co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak. I interviewed some of the top epidemiologists on this, some of the top researchers and scientists. Went pretty much all over the U.S., went to Yale University, interviewed folks there doing research, went to Portland, Maine, interviewed the mayor who did something smart. He said, well, we're not going to get sued if we do this, but let's do one day out of the year that's like cell phone safety day.
Okay.
And we'll have this guy who had a brain tumor come to the high school, talk to the students, and it's a great idea. They didn't get sued. They raised a lot of awareness. I think this is a good model of any city or town that does want to do something to raise awareness. That's a bulletproof way to get out some info. So we were exploring all these different things, and then it basically ended with San Francisco's bill being repealed because of the lawsuit. They were afraid of it.
Oh, okay.
But there is a follow-up, and this is the fun thing where it's like, you make a narrative movie, you can maybe change some things in society, maybe, but
Yeah.
You do a documentary, you can make real-world change.
True.
So what happened is I put out the film, and then I started to be an assistant teacher for film at Berkeley High School. And so every day I was right across from Berkeley City Hall. And I would go and I brought each of the city council a copy of the DVD,
Okay.
Mobilize, and say, hey, by the way, this is, safety legislation documentary. And through doing the documentary, we were able to connect with this great Harvard law professor, Lawrence Lessig.
Okay.
And he said, I'm going to tap my friends at Yale Law, and we will defend any city pro bono that wants to pass safety bill.
Oh, wow.
And so I approached Berkeley about this and spoke with them one-on-one, each person. They ended up passing it unanimously.
Okay.
There was a lot of pushback from industry. They flew out, in their private jets from D.C., and they fought it in, City Hall there, and we had a huge turnout of people. So I posted this as like a follow-up video on YouTube. But basically, we won it unanimously there. Then for the next 5 years, it was in the courts. So in 2020, it went to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court said, well, if the FCC is requiring this info and you're just making it in bigger print, like what's the problem?
Okay. Yeah.
So they dismissed it. They repealed to a lower court, and the FCC sent a letter of preemption saying cities and states cannot provide safety information. Only the federal government can do this.
What?
And it basically, it killed the bill completely. But in the 5 years this was all happening, guess what was happening internationally?
What?
Tons of safety bills popping up all over Europe.
Yes.
The first major lawsuits being won for damages for people who had gotten a brain tumor that they attributed to their cell phone.
Yes.
That was in Italy. 6 courts in Italy all ruled this.
Okay.
And so now it's pretty much a thing in Europe where people are a lot more aware of this. France even started to pull certain iPhones off the market for going over radiation limits.
Oh, wow.
So it did have an impact, and I'm now doing a follow-up kind of about this in the international side, because I'm like, well, shit's not going good in the U.S. with this, but
It'd
hey,
be hard to
look at
pass
these
it in
other...
the US, but the
Yeah.
other people are doing something right.
Yep. And then you go, I think, Australia or New Zealand, they banned kids from social media, like teenagers and stuff. They're like, we don't want them on social media because that's a whole nother aspect to it. Right. But
That's really good.
yeah. Sorry, I went on a tangent there,
That's
but
no,
just
but
wanted to
that's a
show.
good point of like documentaries. You expanded, you took something very small, which was fine print, and echoed it across the world. And now everyone is like, okay, on top of it, or just following it and being like, okay, this needs to be worked on.
Yeah, I do think there's a narrative story there. If I ever see like the Blumhouse guy, I'm gonna be like, it's the scariest concept. Everyone has the device in their pocket right now. It exposes you to radiation, and all the biggest companies in the world and the governments
I think
don't
you
want
should
you to
write
know
it.
it. Yeah.
Shouldn't sit on it. Just
Oh no,
write it.
I've
and
done
put it out there and just be like, this is it.
I've done a narrative pass on it. I think that's the real way to tell the story, because there's certain things in documentary you just can't do either.
That's true. And there's a ton of doc to feature.
Yeah.
Doc to narrative. Like that crossover. It's like, oh yeah, that was a doc, but now there's a film. Because the idea of the film, you can either lean towards true story or actually push the envelope a little bit more as more fictitious.
Yeah. And then if
You know what I mean? Go all scary. You're trying
Yeah.
to pitch to Blumhouse. That means you're trying to go the other way completely.
Well, yeah, I mean, they do a series too, and I think it would be something that would be longer, than just a feature. Almost like a Dope Sick. You need to explain all these different characters, the lobbyists, the people, the victims, and then the people fighting for the legislation. But, it's one of these things where a documentary, I could tell you, this guy, Brett Bocook, got a brain tumor, he's an incredibly healthy guy, shouldn't have gotten it. And you're like, oh, that's cool. I don't know Brett Bocook. But then I said, well, Mark Ruffalo has a brain tumor, lost the hearing in his ear. All of a sudden, you're paying attention to that story
That
a lot more.
hits you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true, actually. He had one.
So what's your answer? Don't put your phone next to your ears?
Oh, I mean, I got the latest iPhone right here. This is, the 2 terabyte Pro Max. I went crazy, but I use this thing airplane mode when I have it in my pocket and I'm not expecting a call. If I'm expecting a call, usually hold it in my hand if I got to walk around, or I put it down on my desk. But I never put it next to my head. I always use speakerphone. And again, these are just basic precautions that they tell you in the fine print what to do, but many people don't know it. It's kind of like people driving around without airbags or seatbelts.
I like that you've read the fine print. I didn't read that part.
Yeah, and they're always changing it too.
But I'm always on headsets. Is that better?
Is it a wired one?
No wireless?
Maybe,
Bluetooth?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably better than you holding this directly next to it, is my understanding.
That phone gets hot too.
When it's heating up, that's using a lot of power and energy,
Yeah.
and those are the times when it's probably using the most amount of radiation. So if you're like in a low service area, you got 1 bar, then probably a good time to use speakerphone, right? But there's all this other background radiation too that I kind of learned about as well, like Wi-Fi and, cell towers, for instance. And really it's cumulative. So, if you keep your Wi-Fi router right under your bed at night and you're spending, a third of your life sleeping, maybe put that Wi-Fi router like opposite side of the apartment or house.
It's interesting. I learned about this from a producer friend of mine. He would, I don't know which is what form of illness that he has, but like for the longest I think right now he has to stay grounded or something, but like New York, his body would not function, but that's because of how much interference, RF, all these networks that are actually pushing through, that they actually interfere with his system, so he gets weak, so he gets sick anytime you go to places that have high amount of. But I never thought about it, like, interesting for you. We're, us healthy people, we just walk around and you don't realize how much invisible rays or invisible like networks are trying to ping each other, and we're standing in the middle of them, and sometimes we operate as a buffer to something, Yeah.
But it's really interesting too, because again, you have people on complete opposite sides of the aisles agreeing on the same issue. So like Gavin Newsom, I mentioned on the liberal and democratic side, right?
Yeah.
And you got somebody like RFK Jr., who he is all about the cell phone radiation issue.
Yeah.
And you would not expect it to be, again, cross aisles.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got someone like Trump who's like, let me put out a golden phone. I'm going to start my own phone here. And, you know.
I think it's special. And, you know, definitely it's a different world of not caring and really caring.
Yeah.
You know, like if you care for future generations and you're seeing how well are we taking care of the place we live and all that, and also taking care of our neighbors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the point. It's like, it doesn't always have to be about me. It can be about the other person, right? Like, yes, I might not be affected, but someone else is. You know, the same situation with like younger and elderly, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the elderly will have more issues as they get older that's affecting them that to us, hey, I can jump over a curb.
Yep.
But to some of them, it cannot. But will it bother me if there's a ramp there? It shouldn't, right? But that's thinking about your neighbor instead of always about you.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this whole thing, electro hypersensitivity, these are the people who, you know, are more adverse to radiation, they say. And I think it's similar to, you look at the smoking issue, and you have somebody who smokes a pack of cigarettes their whole life, doesn't get lung cancer, and somebody who gets exposed to secondhand smoke and gets lung cancer from that.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
a certain amount is genetic, and we know that. But ultimately, one thing that I think is across the board is we know that kids are a lot more affected by radiation than adults due to the thinner skulls and developing brains. And this is why I think if you look at someone like Steve Jobs, he was a low-tech parent. He wouldn't let his kids have tablets and iPads and stuff. Same thing with Obama. I think his kids didn't get their phones until like 13, 14, 15. And you look at the smartest people in tech and you're like, well, why aren't you letting your kids use the phones?
And they can afford it. That's the crazy
marketing.
part. You know, it's not like a limitation of not being able to. They're like, yeah, but we know the side effects of this.
Yep. But the electro hypersensitivity issue, I think, has gotten more mainstream because, again, media. And it wasn't a documentary. It's this series, Better Call Saul, where the brother has that issue. And so, you know.
So that's what it's called. Electro hypersensitivity.
Yeah, they got a term for it.
Okay.
And but he's been like kind of Vince Gilligan, the writer of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. He's been kind of like peppering the idea of the cell phone issue throughout a lot of his writing. In Breaking Bad, they bring it up too, actually. And he always does it through, you know, the foolish people, the people who are on the drugs. Oh, man, yeah, we got to think about the cell phones and this and that. And it reminds me going back to Shakespeare. Shakespeare would always hide the stuff with the fool. He'd have the fool say, like,
true.
what's going to happen.
The crazy man on the
crazy
street
guy,
yelling
crazy
and
homeless
saying,
guy
you
that
know.
knows it. And even I went back further, and there's an X-Files episode that Vince Gilligan wrote where they also bring up cell phone radiation. So it's across the board on 3 of his series. He's talked about this, but I don't think he'll do it in his new series that he has coming out for Apple. I have a feeling that they're
It'll
probably
be interesting to see how that works.
I
It's
don't-
like, hey, you guys cut my check, but let me just put this. Maybe Apple is open-minded to being informational of like, hey, we put it in our fine print. Someone is, you know,
mean,
it goes
it's-
back to your case.
It's
in a way.
possible. I mean, you know, one thing that I tracked was just kind of like all of the media that has spoken about it over the years, and it goes to like South Park, The Office, like you can't.
Humor.
Yeah, but bringing up the cell phone issue in a humorous way that gets across to people, and it's so smart. Like you can't just hit people over the head in a documentary with like doom, gloom, sadness, badness. You know, it needs to be like you got to pepper in jokes and humor, and that's how you really get through to people and get them to think about it.
That's true. The comical relief side of things. Man, congrats. So you're building on the second part of the documentary.
I've been for many years, and it's a slow burn, but you know, it's one of these things where if you can't find funding for it, you could still work on it on your free time and slowly create something that could be really impactful. But the hardest thing I think we're going to have with that type of film is the distribution. And this can be an interesting conversation too.
That's gotta be. But I think right now there's a lot of self-distributor releasing this content into, you know, YouTube and all these places. I think I had a conversation yesterday with someone who their film was already distributed, but now they're getting it back they're trying to figure out where else to put it on,
Yep.
So it's a documentary, and the conversation was Amazon. Amazon, I don't think it's that good with documentaries. Just my
Yeah.
thought, but I'm not well informed on it as
Yeah.
much. So I was like, try it, but I don't know. Like, I really would say I go to Amazon to look for good
Yeah,
documentaries.
but everyone has Prime, right? So again, it's kind of like low hanging fruit there. I had my Mobilize was through Prime through another company. It was cool to have it on DVD. Now I tell kids, "Oh yeah, the movie's on DVD."
Like, what
They're
is
like,
that?
"What do you use
What do you
that
use
for?
that
You
for?
know, what's a
Where does that go?
DBD?" Um, yeah,
Showing your age a little
yeah,
bit.
a little bit. Yeah.
So, where can they find it right now? think
I
it's been-
believe it's still Amazon Prime there. Yeah,
Okay.
and
And what's the name of it?
Mobilize.
Mobilize.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That'd be good. At least it's good information that, we can get. And then we're looking forward to that second one too.
Yeah, that one's going to be a couple years.
Once you explore the global side, I think the EU has always been good on regulation than the US has been on a lot of things.
I just need, a production company that's willing to send me to Europe for a month or two.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find one that
Anyone
is
out
not
there?
linked to the cell phone world.
That's the hardest part. I mean,
Maybe you should just pitch it to Apple.
Yeah. I don't
Like-
think that they're quite at that level of opening it up, but I do have faith in some of these people like Ryan Reynolds with Mint Mobile. He seems like a pretty good guy, and again, it's just a matter of getting one big cell phone company to open up to it, and they're all afraid to say, "Here's the safe way to use a phone," because then people are like, "Wait,
Why should
but
I?"
you told us for years
You
to
know
do
who's going to
this,"
do it?
and it opens them up to liability. That's why
But you
they
know
haven't.
who's going to do it?
Who?
A company that sells an alternative to cell phones. We've not hit it, right? Because everyone has been trying to do this whole hands-free system
Yeah.
of like not having a phone or using, I don't know, invisible systems or a wristband that would be able to connect as a phone. Whoever does that, because they'll have to do a negative campaign against the other side, right? So you have to show why not to do one thing, and the answer is do this one thing that I'm selling you. If you find a new startup that's doing that, maybe.
Perhaps. I mean, it's tricky because everything uses Wi-Fi. So that's the other side of it. It's like our cell phones, but also Wi-Fi is an issue. And, you look at the other big one, it's Comcast. They own Universal, and, they're pretty dominant. And again, I get it. These smaller companies within there don't want to bite the hand that's feeding them.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, do they want their customers to all like die and then they don't have
That's the
customer
other-
base?
No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
But
But no, I'm excited to see.
Yeah,
what
but
you
it
end up
wasn't
doing.
the car companies that said, let's put airbags and seatbelts in the cars. It was people fighting back to say, we need to do this. And then the car companies were like, yeah, I guess we can do that because we'll sell a safer car. And that became a standard, right? You want the safest car in the market. Now it's almost like the electric cars kind of overtaking this. Oh, I want the
Yeah.
car that has the best mileage. And I hate to say it, but electric cars also emit this thing called radiation. And this is why Elon Musk, if you see him on Joe Rogan, he is adamant that cell phones are not dangerous. And it's like, why does Elon Musk care so much about the cell phone issue? And it's like, oh yeah, Starlink. Oh yeah, the Tesla electric cars. Everything he's using is
It's all
using
network.
radiation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so for you moved to documentary. I remember I started working in the 360 space,
Oh yeah.
right? I had a lot of, had high hopes for that industry to take off, right? Like we invested a lot in the 360 space, from getting the Ozo Ambionic mics, at that time the Oculus headset, was still on a programmer mode. They, like just learning and figuring out how this whole world, including the Mantis, which was the car that actually can be able to move.
Yeah.
And you were one of the other big players in that market.
Yeah.
I love the stuff that you did. How did you get into it, or what led you to go into that world?
Yeah, I remember I was doing a shoot down at NASA Ames campus for Singularity University, and they had like a tech lab, I remember one summer there doing filming, and they had like the early Oculus developer. I put this on, and it was like a Windows screensaver. I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like floating through like a river of lava and like very low graphics, very, very, poor quality. And I said, well, this would be cool when you could put people in here, actors, and you can do that. Fast forward 1 year, back at NASA Ames campus, I'm chatting with my friend John Bryant, and he's telling me, hey, do you see about this YouTube 360, And he's showing me on his phone, and we're both like walking around with the phones like together, looking around, looking up, looking down. And he's like, yeah, and they shot it on like this camera that's only $300. I immediately went on my phone, I bought it on Amazon, and I started to do a daily vlog.
Yes.
Every day, I'm going to document my day using this camera. I'm going to learn, how long it could shoot for. I'm going to learn the battery life, all this good stuff I need to do anyway. And I started the first daily VR vlog. And you can go back and see exactly what I was doing, every single day for like 2 years, 2.5 years. And every time I would try and up it, like, what did I learn from the comments section? Okay, don't move my hand around like this. That's going to make people dizzy. All right. And then it was like, well, can you get better quality? I said, okay, I'm going to upgrade to the latest, 360 camera, which I think at the time was the Kodaks.
Yes.
I'm like,
yes,
oh, man,
yes, yes.
so
I
much
think I
more
still
work
have
now
mine
because I
here.
got to stitch 2 cameras together. And all of a sudden my workflow in the editing room became like double. So I remember what I would have to do is I would have to start stitching. I would go to sleep. I would set an alarm to wake up at like 3 or 4 a.m. I would wake up. I would do editing, finish my edit, export that, go back to sleep for an hour or two, and then upload the thing. And that's how I was able to do it every day. And people were like, do you sleep at all? Like, how is it possible you're doing this? Because at the time, no one was doing daily VR.
Yeah.
And it was impossible because there was no auto stitch outside of the Theta. And then, again, it propelled so quick where all of a sudden, the cameras are doing this auto stitching, and the res is up to 8K. And
Yes.
and through that time, I had the honor of doing lots of cool film projects for the 49ers, filming Colin Kaepernick's last season there, playing with them. Did some great stuff with, just a ton of organizations, and ended up teaching at Academy of Art University, undergraduate and graduate filmmaking.
Nice.
So really, took that all the way, but it was through keeping the mindset of I'm a student, I don't know anything, and tomorrow it's going to change. And it still is changing every day in that VR world. But things kind of took a hiccup with the pandemic.
Yes.
All of a sudden, people didn't want to put things on my face, on your face. And
That was the biggest
germs.
struggle, right? Did you ever work with Jaunt?
I did not work directly with Jaunt, but I was very familiar. The Bay Area, right, South Bay.
Yeah, because they're the ones. I think they're the one of few ones who got a lot of funding to play around with in that market. But I think that it's the same struggle. I don't know if you saw the same was people didn't want to wear a headset.
Yeah, and I don't like the headset either. No, beyond the radiation thing.
Yeah.
Which that's a factor. Like, I just enjoyed watching it more on a big screen. And what we would do in the classroom is I would pick a student to watch someone's piece in the headset.
Okay.
So that way the director isn't steering it because they know where to look. And all of a sudden when you have a random person in the headset, now it's like the director knows, all right, for the next cut, you need to add a sound effect so someone will look over there.
That was the next level
yeah, But the cool thing is we had it projected. So we were seeing what the person in the headset was seeing ever in the classroom.
Okay.
And I was like, this is really the better way to watch, VR, in my opinion, in some ways.
Someone else's perspective too.
And I started watching it on the TV, but the TVs had these issues where it would be like a very thin pano initially and like big black bars at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to YouTube, they took a meeting with me to say, oh, what advice do you have for us to do? I got a list of like 100 things. Because I also, did group thing on the Facebook 360 group. I said, hey, I have a meeting with YouTube. Does anybody have any advice? It was like a million things, and I ranked them pretty much. But I was like, if you guys could get it to work on a TV, I think you would see it blow up a bit more. Because no one watched 360 on the TV.
No.
And you're watching it with a mouse. But I said, if you could do it with the remote control up and down. They said, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll think about it. And like, another year later, all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit,
Hey,
I can do
listen.
it, I can do it.
That's a good thing. That's
Yeah.
that's user feedback.
It's cool when Google listens to you
It
sometimes.
listens to you. Yeah. No, and I think to give them credit, like especially YouTube, they've been doing good in terms of listening.
Yeah. But now they got this other problem where Instagram's come in for them because you can do collab posts. And I've been saying for a while, I said, well, YouTube is great, but it feels very like I'm out in the ocean on my own boat and I can't connect with the other people's boats. I can just see them from far away and wave.
Yes.
And I said, just make it a thing like so I can see who subscribes to me. And they finally did this like, a couple months ago. But that still is like too little, too late because now we're at the point where you have Facebook or Instagram and you can see all your followers, right? And you could do a post now where like I interview someone I want to do as a collab post with the film festival that invited me to do the interview. And all of a sudden that video has like tons and tons of views on it. I posted the same thing to YouTube and instead of like 200,000 views, it's like 1,000 views. And it's the same exact content. But again, there's no way for me to like share it further. I can't
Connect with other.
I can't
like
tag
what we're gonna do with this
I
podcast.
can't tag it and have it go to the Mill Valley Film Festival's YouTube as well.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
like a big problem for YouTube. That's a big problem.
It's an interesting point of view, right? Like, I would see the reservation because of the monetary side of things, especially for influencers who are like, this is my audience, this is how much I make, versus this is your audience, this is mine. But also that's where they need to figure out the revenue share if they're doing it for the money, right?
Yeah.
Of, okay, how do we split this?
Well, they can figure all that stuff out, later. But
Exactly.
it's just the smart move to do these collaborations. And if you look at like, how did Mr. Beast rise so fast?
Yeah.
He was like, let's put like 10 of the top YouTubers in this video. And then the next week, 10
And
of whatever.
They do that all the time, yeah.
And it's
yeah.
just, if you
But
can,
now if they linked each other up,
yeah. Then they got work. But I'm sure there's stuff behind the scenes going down like, hey, not only can you win this, but I'll pay you, this to join in
he
the
has
thing.
to make they have to make money because they're all feeding off of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an interesting point of view. Where do you see that world? It's evolved,
Yeah.
right? And now Apple has come back. Google shut down everything VR, like to the T. I had a few friends who worked there and they're like, yeah, they got laid off or moved to different departments. Where do we see this going?
Well, yeah, right now the big news yesterday was YouTube has offered people, if they want to buy out because they know the AI world is coming for the influencers in the YouTube space. And it's so true. I mean, if I can make an AI avatar of myself and have it read something that I wrote and it says it perfect, that's a lot easier than me having to go get a haircut, make sure I put on a nice shirt, make sure my apartment's all clean.
Exactly.
And then I need to do 3 or 4 takes before I get it right. Then I need to edit those takes to piece it all together so I don't sound like a crazy guy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I can do it, with AI and it's pretty good and it's pretty quick. And the ideal thing is to do stuff every single day on your social media or on your platforms to be in the conversation of whatever is trending. And this is a way for people to do that really, really quick. But then there's a question, does it belittle, content where it's like all of a sudden everything is AI out there?
Mm-hmm.
And are we able to differentiate and tell what is real news and what is a real video now? And it's becoming blurrier and blurrier every day, I feel.
I think we're still working our way there. I was gonna create one, and maybe I will at some point. It's just conversation with the team in terms of but there's the authenticity side of things, right?
Yeah.
I follow a few of them. I do know it's AI created, and you can hear, and at least a few of them will tell you they're like, I'm this person's avatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is good. I think that's respecting your audience because the minute they clicked and saw your face, they expected you there than expecting an avatar of you there. And also it sounds very robotic, right? It's once you overcome that robotic, it turns me off
the voice is the thing that
the voice gets me in terms of I'm like, man, it's just there's no authenticity. I just
I almost wish that it's like I can record my real voice reading the thing, and then it's just like the puppet, you know?
I feel like we can get there with especially the way 11 Labs and all this model training.
There's so many, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the one that I work for, Video Flow, Movie Flow. Shit, I fucked that
Te-
up.
Let's take
So-
this. Okay, we'll get
Take
to
that
that.
over,
We'll-
cut that out. So Movie Flow AI, what's cool about this platform is it helps people to keep the consistency. One challenge that I've seen in the AI space is someone will create a video and then they try and make the second video and all of a sudden the character has changed completely. It's like, whoa, my goatee's turned into a whole beard, like what's going on? And it really turns off creatives because then they're like burning their credits up and kind of like hitting their head against their keyboard. And what our platform does with Movie Flow is we kind of have an umbrella where you can use any of them. If you like Weavy, if you like, checking the box with Nano Bananas, you can kind of go through and pick and choose which thing you like the best. And we help to maintain that consistency across it. So this way, your second shot, it doesn't morph the character. All the clothes they're wearing are the same, and it's one of these things that so important because on a movie shoot we notice right away if someone all of a sudden their shirt changes or their hat color changes or whatever.
We do. We're trained to see that.
Exactly. And AI, it's getting there with that, but it's not automatically that good. So you need the human element still. You need people to customize and be able to do these sort of things. It's fascinating.
It's an interesting point of view, like just on the technology side of things. A few months ago, you couldn't do that, so it's like developing forward and you're able to now create the consistency on characters or what that looks like.
Yeah, and even being able to like tune in, like I want a shot that looks exactly like this. I want the bokeh. I want that out of focus kind of like it feels like high quality cinematics. And I think it can be really helpful for a lot of documentarians, a lot of people in the journalism world. I know right now you say AI in journalism and it's like they want to crucify you. But the truth is I remember back when Photoshop came out and it was like the New York Times was like, we're never going to use Photoshop in anything because it's going to throw off the authenticity of journalism and the accuracy. And now we have like the President of the United States posting AI videos themselves and everyone uses Photoshop to do everything. Oh, let's clean up this shot. We got to blur that. And I think the same thing, AI is going to be a tool that journalists start to use a bit more in the video world and in the photo world. I'll give you a solid example. So with this follow-up documentary I'm doing about the brain cancer issue, we had a guy who died in the 90s, and we have very few photos to work with. And I can go around trying to find an actor for years that looks like this guy, and it's just probably get halfway, be able to get some behind the head shots. But I asked, their daughter, I said, can I do a test with AI with this and see how it looks? And we plugged it in, and this was about a year ago, so still very early days, I think. And it came out pretty good, and I sent it to them, and they said, when I saw this, I started to tear up because it was like my dad came back to life for a minute. And I think if people do it ethically, if they get the permissions, this could be a really great resource for any sort of filmmaker that's trying to do a movie about someone who's passed away and they don't have, a lot of footage to work with. They don't have a lot of photos. And, I'm not saying, not to hire actors. I think actors are great, and I think you need actors for certain things that you're trying to get. Like if you're trying to get something really specific with hands doing something, probably better to work with the actors. But if you're trying to get a recreation shot of what it's like in the 90s with 90s cars driving around and everyone's got a brick phone, like that's going to cost a lot of money to do that recreation shot.
Set design.
And the reality is a lot of documentary filmmakers don't have a ton of money to work with.
No.
So, it's one of these things that we have to weigh when we're making these films.
That is interesting as a filmmaker and embracing it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's also working for you as a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the use cases? And now you work for an AI company, which is a little bit of a interesting perspective of looking at it, what's your how do you see it shaping our industry?
Yeah, I mean, like how the VR kind of took off for a couple of years. I think AI now is in this cycle where it is very hyped in some ways, but I wouldn't say overhyped. It is changing pretty much everything. But it's one of these things where people just need to stay on top of the new thing, and it's so hard to keep up with it every single day because it feels like the 360 VR world where like every day there was something new and like a couple things every day. But really, it's just trying to stay on top of it and trying to learn all of the new technology and learning what is capable and, what are its pitfalls. I think everything's kind of got an Achilles heel. And again, it's sometimes you try to recreate objects and it's a bit harder in the AI space, I find personally.
Yeah.
And then you need to work with companies that need to keep it exactly, to the T what the product looks like. Because if they go outside of that in any way, it could be false advertising.
Yes.
And so I work for a company, Swordfish, as well, doing sales.
Okay.
And I believe in Swordfish is a company that's been around, almost 20 years, doing advanced motion graphics for companies like giant cruise ships. You see like, a whole panel of a whale going above you, like, a giant space, these huge LED walls. And then we do things like, you see like an Apple Watch come apart, things like that, where you're scrolling on a website and you get all of those details. But what's cool about our CEO is he's not AI agnostic. He thinks very much like this is going to change our workflow. It's going to speed us up in some ways, but there are certain projects we just can't use it for because of XYZ. But we are constantly trying to, use it in projects to speed up time. Even in terms of render farms and things like that, it just can save days of work on the rendering end if you do this special ingredient with AI.
Yeah.
And I just think of it like in many ways when digital film came out too. And all of a sudden there are a lot of people like, well, it doesn't have the grain of the film cameras. And I'm like, yeah, it also costs a lot more for me to go and do that. And, I love Kodak. I'm a huge Kodak fan. I'm a huge fan of film and 35 millimeter and 70 millimeter. But the reality is, I would never be able to afford to do that.
Yes.
And I immediately jumped on with the digital revolution, even when it was the mini DV tapes. And these tapes still cost a shitload. And the second it went real digital with the cards, I was like jumping on that.
And then went into,
And now if you were to try to sell me an old film camera, I'd be like, how much do you want me? How much are you going to pay me to take that off your hands is kind of what it comes down to now in some ways. But in other ways, they're invaluable. Like you heard about one battle after another. They're looking for this one camera. It's like the only guy who's got it is Giovanni Rivisi because he collected them and he happened to be the collector and owned it and had it work. And he's like, please, man, we need this VistaVision camera. You're the only one. And so they gave him like a special thanks, to borrow that camera. But it comes down to the collectors now holding on to these things and making sure they don't go into complete disrepair.
That's true. Then we gotta keep them, at least if we're gonna train the future. And there'll be films that make it, and it's an artistic decision, to use some of these tools, or you just go digital, and also budget if you have the capacity to be able to play with it. I was gonna explore a little bit on how you got into sales, which actually brought it in. You brought that up already.
So I started my own company a long time ago, and when you run your own company, you're doing everything. You're producing the work. You're constantly looking for new clients. So you're doing the sales aspect. And you're doing the post-production. And for me, one thing that my boss at this company realized is he's like, Kevin, you're really connected with a lot of people. And I know you're a really talented filmmaker, but I think your real skill is being able to talk with people and communicate ideas to people in a simplified way. And, I would love for you to come on board and do sales. And so for me, it was kind of a no-brainer because this company does things that are easy to sell to people.
Got it.
I like to say in a way it's kind of like a more affordable ILM.
Okay.
You need to do a crazy special effect, can't afford to go to ILM, talk with us at Swordfish. And, it's one of these things where we haven't done a lot of feature work. A lot of our work is in the commercial space. So I said, well, I want to see us do more series and things like that and
Yeah.
create those type of visual effects. And at the same time, we see Netflix and these companies saying, well, it's going the world of AI. So that's why we're like, we have to, use these tools every day, and we need to experience what they can do. And even if it's a lot of test projects, testing is the best way to learn. And then it just refines it over time, and you kind of get better at it. Like, no one's coming out the gate with the VR camera the first time and shooting perfect. You need to make all those mistakes and learn.
Yes.
And the same thing with the AI world. I think it's very much in this reiterative phase right now where it's a lot of fails and then a lot of learning from those fails. Like, we think about the Will Smith eating spaghetti video and where that was.
That was the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning of all this AI world, right?
But now people are like, but we don't need Will Smith eating spaghetti. What we need are these shots for these true crime things or whatever, is selling right now on Netflix. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Can you say these words, or can you do all these actions? It's like, we'll get there. At least, hopefully, we can target and know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
How do you see that? Because it sounds like they saw that value in what you do. How's a video sales guy day to day?
You're constantly reaching out to people that you think would make sense to connect with this company. And you go to different events where you're trying to rub elbows. If you're in person with somebody, having a conversation, that's usually a lot better than sending a message. But it's one of these things where sometimes you send an email and then you send the same message through a DM on Instagram, and all of a sudden they're responding back on Instagram. So it's like you got to know where people are and where they're going to respond to. LinkedIn, another great value, where going back to this whole thing we were talking about with YouTube and being able to see who's following and who's connected. I feel like when I message someone on LinkedIn and then they're like, oh, wow, we have 200 mutual connections. Like, I kind of got to respond to this guy. Otherwise he might, tell one of these 200 people like, oh yeah, Kevin never wrote back to me. And all I was trying to do is just say hi. So, when you send an email on Gmail, you don't see those things.
No, you do not.
And so all of a sudden it feels more like a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on LinkedIn or Instagram, you can click and see the person's face and look at, oh, he's dressed up for Halloween. I like that Halloween outfit. I'm going to write back to him,
Yes.
It's Halloween today. So that's why it's on the mind.
No, but that makes a lot of sense. For what because that's you started by saying, you started a company, you ran it through same kind of world. What advice do you have for the video production people or people in the industry in relation to sales? Or what do you see as a challenge for creatives when it comes to sales?
I think people go into the sales in the video world and they think, I need to sell you that we make video. And really what you're trying to do is listen to people and find out what is the problem with their company that they need solved. And if they say, we need to, explain to people this really hard technical detail that we're rolling out in our app, simplifying that into a way that many people can understand is often something these tech people cannot do. So being able to do both things where you can understand the tech and make it a simplified thing that people can understand, I mean, that helps solve a pretty big problem for a lot of these startups, a lot of these AI companies. They all are in that same world where it's like, how do they differentiate themselves when there are 10 other companies all doing the same thing?
Yes.
And it's the marketing, it's the branding, it's the imagery, but it's the authenticity. How is this going to help me solve a real problem in my life? And it's like, if you watch any commercial right now, that's what they're really trying to get at, and it could be for anything, whether it's a pain pill or, this specific drug. They're not showing me like, even the person really taking the pill. It's them with the stomach cramps and this and that. And it's like showing all of that. And for me, I think, I just try and figure out like, how can I help this company? What do they need? Do they need to get more customers? Do they need to get more venture capital? Do they just need to simplify their product so people can use it better and not have so many emails and support?
Yeah.
And again, video can solve all of those things. But if I go out the gate saying, we're going to get a bunch of money for you, we can make a video, that might not be what they have a problem with right now. They might say, we have a ton of customers. Our problem is our customers don't know how to use the latest update of our software.
To solve that,
Solve
offer
whatever problem that they
solution
have. Yeah, be solution
on
based.
the perspective of what their problem is,
Yep.
other than selling the video
Yep.
as the solution, or just selling, hey, we can do video, but
Yeah.
what is this video equated to?
And then even in the world of, we already have like a film person who handles all that at our company. Don't worry. The answer to that is, well, can they do everything that we can do? Can they do advanced motion graphics? Can they save you money with AI?
Yeah.
Can they get you on the App Store with a beautiful design? Like,
Yeah.
And figuring out, it's hard to find somebody that can do everything. That's
true.
why you work with a bigger company. I don't need to sell myself and my technical abilities. I'm selling my coworkers and what they do. And what they've done for years is they've done projects, they're ex-ILM folks. They're people who have worked back when Steve Jobs was at Apple filming stuff, they did Intel commercials with the Intel guys back when they had like those dry suits, you know what I'm talking about, those characters?
Yeah.
So like, that level of experience, it's something that AI can never replace that. But people can utilize all of the skills they've learned throughout, their careers and be able to accentuate it with AI. And, again, it's something that's supposed to be a tool to help people to save time. And I think the challenge is a lot of people start in the AI world and they have fun with it, but they're like, it's not really solving the exact problem because they don't know how to fine tune it quite yet.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's a growing market. Where do you see? I was going to tell you, I listened to a little bit of your pitch right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was already buying in. I was like, okay, I see the vision, because that's half of the problems that I think a lot of either getting in the industry or just surviving in the industry is, yes, you will have companies that have the internal people or internal one person. A lot of them have one person, but how far or how much can they solve for you, right?
Yep.
That's why you look out. And the idea of, okay, you're looking out because I have this big problem. I just need to be solved. We're not saying we're going to solve all your little problems. We're not trying to do your every day-to-day meeting or every day-to-day problems that your in-house guy is solving. We're just solving the other problems that you have that need solutions. And we've solved them before.
Yep. And sometimes I see the problem just going on their website. I'm like, oh man, this website needs to read it. But it's hard to explain to them too. Like, to the outsider, like, people don't know what your thing is, what your technology does.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's almost easier to explain to them, well, here are some ideas, to improve upon that. And then they say, those are really good ideas, and sometimes you get the companies that say, we're going to take that idea and run with it. And sometimes they say, we're going to hire you to implement it.
Yeah. I think both of them is a win, right?
Oh, yeah. At the end of the day, you're still, helping to improve the quality of that company.
Exactly.
And again, advice and feedback is free. But I think they might remember that too and say, we're going to go back to them eventually.
So they might get stuck at some point. And they're like, maybe we should call the guys who gave us this idea. We've done how much we can by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always value, I think, to that. Where do you see, now you're in the video world and all that, where do you see this or the building of the AI space going, especially in relation to our industry?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it with all the big production companies wanting to utilize it. I mean, it's a way to create better quality in some ways and save money if you do it right. But I think it's also very scary because, people are going to get displaced from it. And how do you make that work, financially and keep everybody happy and keep everyone employed? And it's very challenging, I think. At the end of the day, for independent filmmakers and people who don't have a lot of resources, it's a great ability to up the quality of their productions without having to break the bank and put it on credit cards. And I think that is very empowering for storytellers, where we're going to see stories that maybe wouldn't get greenlit by a studio oh, we're not going to spend all this money to do, you know, everything everywhere all at once. This seems like a real wild concept. But all of a sudden they can do it on their own, you know, a shoestring budget, and it could get out there in the world, and a streamer sees it and says, oh, we want to put that theatrically because we think this will make a ton of money. And they're able to do that. And the biggest challenge, I think, right now is just people are a bit afraid of it, and being able to learn it can be tricky because it's constantly changing. So you think you know something perfect. Oh, I know how to use this platform great and how to get the good results out of it. And then everyone's starting to move to another platform. And that's why I like Movie Flow, is that we encompass sort of everything and allow you to be able to pick, you know, out of all of them. So you're not burning up all your credits on one site and another site. We're doing it through one site to make it easier for people to utilize all of the tools available. And then the other factor is trying to keep that consistency between each of your shots.
Yes.
And often a lot of these video generation things don't have that ability to reference back what
Yes.
and so keeping that again under one umbrella is a way to maintain that and keep it easier for people. At the end of the day, it should be fun. It should be easy. It shouldn't be something difficult that you're pulling your hair out trying to get it.
Yeah.
And in the same instance, you know, you might not get it the first shot. Just like when I do a movie with an actor, they're not going to be perfect the first take. I have to do many takes with them.
That's
and
true.
if you're someone like Stanley Kubrick, you might do 100 takes just to find that one mistake. And think of that with AI. Like, if you don't get it the first time or the second time, like, you might need to do it a lot of times. You might need to try another platform.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
yes.
that's what, you know, our software kind of allows that right now. But we hopefully are doing it in a way where people aren't hitting their head against the wall trying to make it work.
Amazing.
And we try to put up tutorials that explain it a bit more. But at the end of the day, it's just about user feedback, trying to make it just smoother experience and just overall better.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm going to turn it back to you a little bit of like, okay, so you've been doing this. You've managed to stay in the industry. How, let me get a napkin actually, as I ask this question.
Are you going to make me cry? Is that why we need a napkin?
No. I don't know. Like there. Yeah, I'm not sure. The question for you is how do you stay motivated to be in the industry?
Well, I feel like if you love what you do, it's not work. You know what I mean? If you're passionate about it, and if you, if it keeps your interest, you know, it doesn't feel like you're working 7 days a week, 24/7. It feels like you are accomplishing things every day that are moving your goals forward, and that you are just happy to see, you know, clients at the end of the day with the product that they're happy with.
Yeah.
And what's fun about it is in the video space, every day is something different.
That's true.
No day is always the same. And you're always kind of challenging yourself to do it better, to do it faster, to do it quicker in some ways, and to keep the quality getting better and better.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the cameras doing 8K and 12K now and all this sort of stuff, it's like kind of bananas. But in the same instance, it's like, oh, but I want to be able to scale in and zoom out, and I can do all the camera shots now and not have to think about it, you know, in the moment.
It's a beautiful industry we're in, right? And also there's so many spaces that you can fit into, right? Like you can be filming today. If you were interested in post, you can go into the post world and be able to cut what you have. I'm going to plug this in because you are part of the VFX Society.
Yeah, Visual Effects Society, yeah, VES. I'm on the Bay Area board, and we put on different film screenings. It's a nonprofit. We're a lot about education. We do pub nights, different things like that. We do awards every year. It's kind of like a precursor to the Oscars.
What is your connection there? Or how did you get drawn into that world?
Sure.
Are you really deeply into the VFX world, or how?
I'll do a big plug. Anyone who does visual effects for 5 years or more can join the Visual Effects Society. You have to get 2 letters of recommendation from current members. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll connect you with somebody, or you probably know somebody already on your LinkedIn. but basically it can be anything. It could be in the post-production world.
Okay.
You're doing a ton of effects and this and that.
Okay.
It can be someone who's a makeup artist creating a practical effect, right?
Interesting.
And so we are very much like, hey, everyone join up, international organization. We got chapters all over the world, France, Germany, across the USA. And the best part is we put on these really cool film screenings with the directors, with the actors, with the visual effects folks. And we do this at fun locations in the Bay Area like Pixar, at Skywalker Ranch. So earlier this week, got to chat with Ryan Coogler for a hot second, his wife. Really cool team, filmmaking team. And just really great experience for anyone to get involved with anywhere that you operate in the world. Austin, Texas, Atlanta.
You already picked a lot of people's interest. You just mentioned Ryan Coogler. You mentioned Pixar.
Yeah.
You got everyone in there. Are they friends of the VFX people?
They all want to be friends with the VFX people, right? Because we make the movies really fun. And, there are other organizations like, SAG and PGA and DGA. But with the VES, we usually get some of the best films because you got all the visual effects going on. It's usually blockbuster movies. And again, just exploring new technology. We did a whole thing. We brought people from LA who specialize in 4DX and ScreenX.
Nice.
And we had a special presentation at Stonestown in San Francisco where they got to show us different clips.
Okay.
We asked a ton of questions. A lot of my questions. I got another one. And by the way, I don't plan to make any 4DX movie anytime soon, but I love going to those. And it's kind of like one of those things where if you go to see a bad movie in 4DX, you're like, well, at least the ride was fun. It was a good ride.
It was a good ride. Yeah, that's true.
But
which is, I think that's amazing, and I appreciate that because a lot of what we forget, and also that's good because most people, there is the idea of like you have to be in LA to get some of these resources, and you forget the Bay Area, or just where we are. A lot of these organizations exist here.
Yeah.
And also, just working to get the word out. And, you've been a good champion with the Vine, coming in and making sure at least you're plugging in what you're working on, because that's the whole goal for this, is making sure at least people know these resources are in your backyard.
And you won't believe how many people are happy. I put up a list for the Visual Effects Society of like other events in the Bay Area that are not VES related, but that people should know about. I list the Vine on there, which by the way, every first Thursday, Oakland, check it out, $5, pizza, wine. You get to connect with lots of great folks. And, I had a meeting this week with the board of the PGA Bay Area and the VES board. And they were like, we love that extra events thing because it really shows how there are all these other filmmaker things happening in the Bay Area, and we all need to connect together.
Yes.
So, I'm always plugging the Vine, and I always try and make it out if I can.
No, it's really good. Actually, we have PGA is gonna be doing something with us next year.
Nice.
So, but I think it's there. It's like community building, and how well can we be able to create the awareness, right? Because everyone's doing things in silos, and you have your own people in those pockets or buckets. But now let's open that up. Let's see how can we build a bigger community. And also get resources around, right? Like understanding I don't need to go to LA to get good VFX people. They're right here. Okay.
Exactly.
Who's the best resource that I can tap into? There's an organization that has a whole roster of those, right? How well can I get those? So I think there's an advantage to that. Now, for you, you're doing, there's a lot of amazing work that you do, right? And part of why we do this and part of why the podcast is called Balancing Acts is how, and today came up, it's like you can never have a balanced life, right? But the question to you is, how do you navigate through everything? How do you stay sane, for lack of better words, as you're doing everything that you're doing? What is your system?
I have a list on Google Docs where I put each day and I break down by the hour kind of what's happening.
Wow.
And, this is one way to keep me on track. And then I have ongoing list of other tasks I want to complete that maybe it doesn't need to happen that day. And it's kind of like you're always shifting what needs to happen today. These are the top 5 things that need to happen today. These other things can move down on the stack. And this is a really efficient way to work where you don't lose track and don't miss the deadlines for the things that you really want to accomplish. And it can be something as silly as I need to go to the DMV to renew my license. I knew I can't wait 2 weeks to do that because in 2 weeks the license will have expired and it's going to take them 2 weeks to ship it.
Yes.
So I said, okay, this needs to go to the top of the stack, last week.
Move it up.
And so I have it like up there and I'm like, this needs to happen ASAP. And I said, oh, wow, this other meeting dropped through. I have an extra 2 hours. Going to take care of that right now. Even if I don't want to, even if I'm like, man, I really don't want to go to DMV right now.
Yeah.
You have to, know that these are the top things. And the other thing a lot of people say is if you do the hardest task first in the morning or in the early afternoon, it's all kind of downhill from there. But if you try and do the hard task at night, good luck. Good luck with that.
You've been bombarded with a lot of asks that your brain is already fatigued.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have the capacity to take on that. Are there any other activities, yoga or anything that you do, meditation? Is there anything that you do to do that?
I think meditation is good. I like to walk around my neighborhood, occasionally stretch the legs. I have a standing desk. I don't really use it as much as I should. But I try and stand up often. I have a cat who keeps me kind of, busy all the time too. And just, I think it's one of these things where, if you meditate on things, it's probably smart if you're stuck in an edit to go and walk around the block or sleep on it. And then you wake up or you have in your dream, oh my God, I connect those 2 shots and it's going to work perfect.
Yeah. But they say walking away helps sometimes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of doing the documentaries over years. You really can look at it like 2 months later or 3 months later and like take a break, and then all of a sudden you see it with a whole new light.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. And it's hard if you wrote the thing and you're directing it and then you're editing it that you get so hung up. It needs to be how I wrote it. And at the end of the day, it's a visual medium. It's never going to be the thing that you wrote. It's going to be this thing it morphed into in the filming and that you need to fix in the editing, really.
Yes. And what's next?
Ooh, I don't know. I think, there are a million different projects that I want to talk about that I should bite my lip and not talk about.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of fun things coming up. And I think, I have to plug this other organization I'm a part of too. I'm a Bay Area co-chair of the Documentary Producers Alliance. Amazing organization. It's trying to basically connect the documentary film folks all around the world and internationally.
Okay.
And in some ways it's like the VES, but for doc folks. And what I love about this is I'm able to immediately find someone. If I need to hire someone to film in North Carolina, I can see a bunch of folks that are reputable, that are part of this organization. I can take a look at their portfolio, their reels, and make really fast decisions if something comes up that, it's too expensive for me to fly out there and bring all my camera gear.
Yeah.
Why not hire this person and film it remotely and do the interviews remote?
Yeah.
And this was just not something possible like 10, 15 years ago. But now it's really it's helpful for supporting local film communities in rural areas.
Yes.
It saves money on the production. It's kind of a win-win. And it's one of these things that I just don't see AI digging as much into that sector of doing interviews and investigations and that sort of thing.
Sure.
You can't use AI to really do that. And maybe on the corporate level it would happen, but in the documentary world where you're trying to actually talk with someone and understand, where they're coming from, I feel like it needs to happen people to people. And, AI, I don't see ever replacing that, but I don't know.
I like that. That's a very interesting point of view on AI, definitely, of investigative reporting, because it's someone else's story. You really need to talk to them to get that story out. You can't. It will be assumptions. It will be an idea of what happened, but until you talk to the person. So that's an aspect probably won't go away. But I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you're...
I I'll plug my YouTube and Instagram. It's just my name, Kevin Kunze. I think I have a TikTok too. I don't really use that, but I think it's all about staying connected with people on social and being able to, see what other people are up to, and that's always inspiring to me. And it's one of these things where more and more people are actually watching the movies on their phones in short edited clips. So you might have a movie like Weapons, great film, 2 hours roughly.
Yeah.
And I asked my daughter, "Do you see Weapons?" And she said, "Yeah, I saw it on my phone." I was like, "What do you mean you saw it on your phone?" She said, "Yeah, I saw it on TikTok. I saw it in pieces on TikTok." I was like, "Did you really see the movie if you're watching
finished
it like
2
that?"
hours on TikTok?
I'm like, how did they...
5-minute blurbs or
but- But one thing I would say is, hey, whoever's doing the marketing for that movie, look at what clips they chose, and what stuff to post to get people, to check it out further.
Wow.
But
I saw it on YouTube, on TikTok.
yeah, more and more people are watching it like that, and now you have the agencies that are like, we are doing vertical productions.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of very opinionated on this because I think we don't see the world like this.
No.
We see it, fully in the round, just like 180, VR 180 in the VR space. But I think very much like this is why we move from like these square TVs to more wider format TVs over time, is we want to see
More
the stuff in
of
our
the
peripheral.
space. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now with vertical, bringing it back to this, I'm like, I miss, this side of it.
Yeah.
I think somebody eventually is going to create a social media platform, not YouTube, but it's going to be all like horizontally, and you can see clips like that horizontally. And I think all the
That's true. Yeah.
all the film folks are going
It's
to
YouTube.
jump on it. It's like YouTube, but I can't just flip and click on YouTube.
And click on and swipe.
Yeah, and I think eventually that could be a thing.
Are you struggling? Because I find I struggle with content, even shooting now, right? Like I'll use my phone, but I know what cinema is, and I know what I want to do, but just knowing how the consumption of the content, I end up doing this a ton of times.
Yeah.
And I keep catching myself in the middle of it. I'm like, but I know this way consumption is harder, right? Like even though you send someone a clip that is this way, it feels like it's work because someone locked their screen. Yeah. So they have to go unlock their screen, flip it to be able to see it. Yeah. When this way they just... So I'm in between. What is how is the content, especially with kids, right? Like I have kids, I'm always filming them. Mm-hmm. And that's the future of like, how is the content that I'm creating or saving for them kind of look like? Because half of them are like, but I'm also not fitting all of them in the frame. So, so it's like, is it a mixed medium or how would that look like? That's why you have the 0.5 that you can go wider, but I'm still shooting on a portrait mode.
But it's almost just like the pacing has just gotten so much faster. Like used to be a thing where every 3 seconds you have a cut, and that's kind of like, and now I think it's sped up where it's like, every 2 seconds now it's like, you got to cut, you got to keep it moving. Yeah. And even kids on TikTok would be like, that's too slow. I need something just 1 second, just moving constantly.
But you can't tell a story that way, right? Because there's no the anticipation. There was that length of a shot that you're keeping your audience there because you know the next one that's coming.
It kills the suspense in some ways.
Exactly.
But it does remind me of this film that, going back to when I was first starting editing and experimenting with visual effects, I made this short movie called Electric Sleep. I edited it frame by frame, and we put a warning before it, like, if you have epilepsy, like, be careful watching this. Because it's literally like just flashing at you. It's like an Aphex Twin music video or something. And I had so much fun editing this, and I felt like I could fit so much in that 2 minutes that, like, I wouldn't make it as a 20-minute thing. Yeah. But ultimately, it taught me that, you can do a lot in just a couple seconds. And, I love these long movies, these 3-hour movies, 2-hour movies. But some of these things on streaming, it feels like they draw them out where it's like a 5-hour, 6-hour series. And people are like, no, it gets really good if you get to the 3rd episode. And I'm like, why do I got to watch 3 hours before it gets good?
This thing just to start getting into it. Yeah. Like, so bring it in.
So I think it's kind of going both ways, right? Because everyone wants to, can you make that It series 6 episodes instead of 5? And they're like, yeah, we can, but what are we going to add? Let's
start it so slow and start telling you about how you woke up.
Yeah.
It's like, so many ways you can wake up in the morning. But no, it's the ones that get you at the beginning. It's like, and European shows have that, right? Like they're shorter in their series, like how many they can actually be at, and they're always engaging, right? Because there's a difference of the medium, right? Like watching a movie, yes, you have this long one film that you couldn't be able to stretch out your characters or kind of give us the backstory, and that's
Yeah.
why series makes sense. But if you're overstretching the series, now you're actually going.
Yeah.
It's losing the value as to why you move to that.
Yeah, in like some ways they want to oversimplify it, and then it's like, no, I want to be like behind it and be like, wait, what's happening? Where's it going? And when they slow it to the point where like, oh yeah, this, that, you're like, I know the next scene already.
Yeah.
And I love the stuff where it moves so fast and the jargon is so like, complicated. It's in the verbatim of the characters that you're like, wait, what did they just say? I need to rewind, this
I love those.
House of Dynamite. Like, what is going on? Because it's just moving so quick.
Yeah.
I even given this other example, this mob film on Netflix right now, this Mafia is like a 3-part thing, 3 hours, and it's moving so quick.
Which one is it called?
It's, I think, Mafia Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good? You recommend it?
It's pretty good. And again, it's just like, you have to really pay attention. If you pull out your phone for even a minute and look down, you're like, I gotta rewind it back because they already moved on to like this
happened
whole.
to me on House of Dynamite. I had to stop. I'm like, okay, cut it out. This is the focus right now.
Yep.
The Guinness, House of Guinness.
Yeah,
That's also good.
they should. That should come with a discount on Guinness. You buy a Guinness,
And then you get
at the end of everything, it's like you can
That's a good
scan a
idea.
code or
Can
something.
scan a code. You should pitch. Yeah. No, it was a good one. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me
This
out.
was really good. We've had this conversation, so having you here, I think it's worthwhile for our audience at least to hear.
And I'm excited for a little film project that we're going to be doing next week, which we can't tell
We can't
anyone
tell
about.
anyone about it.
But you subscribe and
Yes.
you follow.
Yes.
We will eventually reveal this really cool project we're working on together that is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's No, we can't say much about it right now, but we'll share once the project starts.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching. That's Kevin Kunze. Heard it here. We'll put his handles over there, and also we'll be collaborators. Since Instagram is doing it, YouTube is not. We'll collaborate on Instagram on these
Make
posts.
a nice collab post. I wish I could reshare it on YouTube.
YouTube is now.
YouTube,
On
I can
full
reshare.
sessions.
Oh, then let's do it.
You can collab.
Let's do it. Thank you for.
All right.
We
Thank
just
you for
found
the
out.
correction. We just found out you can collaborate on YouTube. So we'll make those moves happen since we already have audiences on Instagram and YouTube. And the value to this is, understanding Kevin, and you can follow him and also ask any questions that you might have within reason, I guess. Or
Yeah.
Just ask anything.
I'll say one other thing on the collab post. When I first found out about it, I was kind of like peeved in a way. Because I had seen somebody had posted an interview I did with Sean Baker. And I was like, wow, they have like 100,000 views on their thing. And mine only has 2,000 on my Instagram. And I was like, hey, can you pull that? Like, this is really not cool. And they were like, what if I tag you and we make a collab post? I'm like, what's a collab post? And they're like, it ends up on your page too. I said,
So that's how you learned about
that's
collab?
how I learned about it. Yeah,
Oh.
Director Daddy on Instagram
okay.
made me aware of it. But again, always go into this like no one's trying to steal your video and run off with it and make, but at the end of the day, it's like if you create something, you put it out there and someone is posting it, it should be right that they tag you and you do
That's
it as a
true.
collab
That's
post.
true.
And
That's true.
so that's a good way, I think, of bringing it all back together. And, I'm all about if someone finds, an interview that I did with somebody and the first 10 minutes is boring and they find that good 20 seconds of gold and they put the text over and make it fancy, like, do it.
That's cool.
I'm all about remixing and that type of culture. But I think, give credit. Folks. And that's the hard thing about AI too now because it's scraped from everything.
Scraped from everything. But we learned, give credit whenever you can. Thank you all for watching. This has been an amazing session with Kevin Kunze. Please subscribe if you haven't yet and check out this interesting conversation that we just had. We've covered different topics and our show is Balancing Acts. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Balancing Acts. Check it out.
Balancing acts.
Got to
All right.
balance.